All right, we are live. Hello. Thank you for joining me today, day before Halloween. I appreciate it. Just to get the basic stuff out of the way, you can always support this channel by going to patreon.com/Hemant. I appreciate that. And you could support the stuff I write and subscribe at friendlyatheist.com. I appreciate that as well. I'll just get a couple things started over here and we will get started. As always, Den is here in the comments. He's moderating stuff. So if you leave any questions for me as we go through stories, he will make sure I see them in between stories. And we have many, many things to talk about today. I'll get started in just a second. Once I can pull this up, and give me 1 second to do that, and then we'll get started. Oh, I'll show you that in a moment as soon as I get this going. There we go. Okay. I think we're all set. I'm going to start with the story that it came to my attention just like in the past 24 hours because people in Florida started sending it to me saying, "Have you gotten a load of this?" And basically, it appears that, Florida has this voucher program in place where, pretty much anybody is allowed to get taxpayer dollars to attend the school of their choice. And a lot of them spend it on private schools, even though many of them can already afford it. And a lot of them spend it on private religious schools, which is kind of the point. They want public dollars going to private Christian schools. But apparently, some other people are now trying to get that taxpayer money too. And it's very upsetting to the Republicans who put this all in place. So here's the backstory you need to know about this. The voucher program in Florida began like 3 decades ago. And specifically, the state said, we want to make sure people who have disabilities, students who come from low income families, we want to make sure they can have access to special, maybe private schools where their differences can be accommodated. And okay, that might make a lot of sense there. But in 2023, Republicans in Florida under Ron DeSantis, they signed this massive school voucher expansion into law. And the specific thing I wanted to show you here, maybe I lost it there, but basically, a couple of years ago, they signed this big bill into law. It wasn't just a bill, it was House Bill 1. This was the Republicans' priority. And it expanded this voucher program so pretty much anybody could get a taxpayer funded scholarship to attend the school of their choice, and they could go to a religious school. And Republicans said this would expand school choice. This was the argument they were making. And of course, if you study education policy, you know that really what voucher advocates want is to destroy public education altogether. That's kind of what vouchers are all about. They take money out of public schools and funnel them into usually private Christian schools that can already afford whatever it is they want, or they just want the taxpayer dollars anyway. Now, here's the thing about this voucher plan. Whatever the Republicans wanted to get out of it, that has pretty much been the case. And this is from the Orlando Sentinel. Check this out. More than 300,000 Florida students used vouchers, sometimes called scholarships, to attend 2,278 campuses last year, according to Step Up for Students, which administers the program. Roughly 24 of the schools that participate in the program are Islamic, according to the state education department. The majority are Christian. And that is a very interesting thing to note there, because it said just a handful of those are Islamic. I want to show you one other thing about these Christian schools, because last year the Orlando Sentinel also published this. Was it last year? It might have been a couple years ago. But check this out. The Orlando Sentinel found 83 schools that refuse to admit LGBTQ students or could expel them if their sexual orientation or gender identity were discovered. Some also refuse to educate students whose parents are gay or hire staff who are gay. Another 73 schools call being gay or transgender a biblical sin, but do not explain how those views play out in admissions or student discipline decisions. So these are 83 schools, and then another 73 just straight up anti LGBTQ schools that are getting taxpayer dollars, but they get to enforce their conservative Christian views on LGBTQ people, and they can choose just not to bring them inside. They can say no to the students. They can say no if you have gay parents, whatever. That's where taxpayer dollars are going in Florida. And the thing is, Republicans have no problem with this whatsoever. It is fine for those Republicans if taxpayer dollars are used to indoctrinate students with Christianity. It is fine to use taxpayer dollars if you're enforcing Christianity in those schools. So that's just the state of affairs where we are now. Now, as I mentioned in that previous article, some of these schools are Islamic, and they kind of do the same thing. They have a dress code. Some of these schools may say, hey, if you're a female student at our school, you have to wear a hijab and cover your hair, cover your head. And this reality is now freaking out Republicans who cannot believe taxpayer dollars are being used to finance Islam. So here's what happened that is kind of funny if it weren't so disturbing. Last week, this woman on X/Twitter, she posted this very sad tweet. Actually, I'm going to go here for a second. Alert, I don't know what Florabia is about, but Islamic schools in Florida are publicly boasting that voucher money is attracting Muslims from across the country to relocate here because the state will pay to educate their children inside Sharia-run institutions. They are not hiding what they are building. Why aren't your political leaders addressing this? Florida school choice program is now bankrolling Islamic schools tied to Muslim Brotherhood linked networks. Oh my God, it's whatever scary buzzword she could throw in about Muslims. She did it all in one very long tweet. And then more recently, she showed a video and she says, again, the state school choice vouchers are now being used to build Sharia-run institutions that operate by a rival legal order, consolidate Muslim migration, and convert public dollars into permanent Islamic infrastructure on U.S. soil. This is no longer parental empowerment. It is a taxpayer-funded expansion project, importing a hostile ideology, embedding it in schools, and scaling it with state money. These videos, I'm not showing them to you because they're long and they're kind of boring. But basically, the video she was showing, she runs some anti-Muslim right-wing organization. Those videos she showed are basically promotional ads for the Islamic schools where they tell potential parents who might want to send their kids there, hey, this is what we do at our school. This is how we teach them about the Quran. And listen, you don't have to like that. I don't particularly like religious indoctrination, but there's nothing different about that sort of promotional video and the sort of promotional video you would see coming out of a fundamentalist Christian school, right? It's these religious leaders saying, hey, send your kids to our school. We will teach them, yes, all the reading, writing stuff, but also it will have a religious basis. And we will make sure we emphasize that religious stuff here too. The difference between the videos is that in the Muslim school ones, the people in the videos spoke Arabic. That's where the Florabia comes from, I guess. But they spoke Arabic and they talked about the importance of the Quran. So this anti-Muslim woman was basically claiming this is state-funded terrorism. She said the state is paying to educate these children of Muslim parents inside Sharia-run institutions. And that, again, Florida's school choice program is now bankrolling Islamic schools tied to Muslim Brotherhood-linked networks. She said she was disturbed by Sharia dress codes, Basically, women have to wear the hijab. That's the dress code. She said those schools do not celebrate Christmas. This is a big freaking deal to her. And she said they're bringing in clerics trained in militant Sharia institutions who signal empathy for terror actors. Like, she didn't back any of this up. She just kind of said it. There's no evidence of any of this. But this is what she said. She said Florida is financing this. Now, if it were just one crazy right-wing bigot saying something Islamophobic, maybe we all just ignore it and hope she goes away. But that is not how things work in the right-wing ecosystem, because guess what happened when she posted that tweet? The Attorney General of Florida, James Uthmeier, he retweeted her post and the video that she clipped to it, and he said, Sharia law seeks to destroy and supplant the pillars of our republic form of government and is incompatible with the Western tradition. The use of taxpayer-funded school vouchers to promote Sharia law likely contravenes Florida law and undermines our national security. So the obvious question here is, what do you think these schools are doing to promote Sharia law? That seems like an obvious follow-up questions, right? Because it doesn't look like they're doing anything illegal that Florida doesn't allow Christian schools to do all the time. And this is the Attorney General. This is like the guy who replaced Pam Bondi. They're not sending their best in Florida. And that's not all. There was another dude in Florida. This is Wilton Simpson, and he is the agriculture commissioner. I don't know why he's deciding to chime in on this, but he's Republican, so of course he is. He said that back in my day as Senate president, universal school choice was one of my top legislative priorities. Schools that indoctrinate Sharia law should not be a part of our taxpayer-funded school voucher system. School voucher program. So I do appreciate that when the Orlando Sentinel said, do you have any evidence of this bullshit you guys are spouting over here? Neither of those two Republicans said anything. Check this out from the Sentinel. Uthmeier's office did not respond to an email from the Orlando Sentinel this week asking if he could provide examples of Sharia law in schools that take vouchers or explain how that type of instruction might conflict with state law, which allows for religious instruction in campuses that take public money. The video he shared, posted by the founder of the, what is that, RAR Foundation, features the principal of the Tampa area school speaking in Arabic with English subtitles indicating he is discussing the voucher program, his school's religious teachings, and the challenges facing Islamic educators, which, that sounds normal for like the head of a religious school. I don't know why that's weird, but the point is this newspaper is like, hey, you guys are talking a lot about how these schools are scary, supporting terrorism, promoting Sharia law. Can you like back that up? And all of these Republicans just shut the hell up all of a sudden because they got nothing, because they know their base is never going to ask follow-up questions. You think their base wants evidence? No, they just do fear mongering. So it's not just that, though. Like, there's literally a bill that was already proposed in the Florida legislature right now to ban state courts and agencies from implementing Sharia law. But, like, it's not a thing that is happening anywhere in the state. It's all fear-mongering, and they're all just trying to nip it in the bud, even though it's not a real thing. It's like, whatever, Lauren Boebert or Marjorie Taylor Greene complaining about space lasers, and I'm going to pass a bill to make sure none of those Jewish space lasers can hurt us. It's like, that's not a thing. So what does that bill even do? No one knows. Like, if there are conservative lawmakers who want to prevent taxpayer dollars from funding Islamic schools, there is a way they could stop doing that. They don't have to fund any private schools with vouchers. And that would shut off the pipeline to these private Islamic schools entirely. But they're never going to do that because it would also shut off the pipeline to private Christian schools. They love it when taxpayer dollars prop up Christianity. They just don't think other religions should be given equal treatment under the law. And that is Christian nationalism's hypocrisy in a nutshell for you. Because for decades, these Republican lawmakers have demanded that public money flow into private Christian schools. And they always use phrases like school choice. They say it's about freedom. It's not about faith. But now that a non-Christian religion is playing by the exact same rules, they're suddenly appalled by it. And like their outrage doesn't reveal anything that's wrong with Islam other than, okay, I don't believe in it. I don't think it's true. But it reveals how little they actually cared about religious freedom. You know, as critics and church state separation advocates have long argued, vouchers are here to promote Christianity in schools. That's what the voucher programs are always about, or just to punish public schools. It's never about championing religious equality. So the bottom line is, if you want to open the public coffers to religion, this is what's going to happen. A religion you don't practice will want to take advantage of the opportunity. We have seen that happen with school chaplains in Florida. They said, let's put chaplains in public schools. And in some districts, humanists and Satanists spoke up and said, if you say yes to this, we are going to try to get our people in your schools. So it's up to you. And then the school district said, maybe we don't want to do that. We have seen this with invocations at city council meetings. The only reason you have invocations at city council meetings is to appease Christians, but they can't say no to Satanists and humanists and atheists. And so as soon as they open the door, you have seen a lot of stories about non-Christians trying to deliver invocations and people trying to shut them down because you weren't allowed to play in this game. We didn't pass this for you. So in this case, the moment the system stopped exclusively enriching Christian institutions, the Republican mask slipped. So these lawmakers are not defending faith. They just realize that their plan for statewide theocracy comes with some inherent flaws. They're panicking over Sharia, but really what they're panicking about is the fact that non-Christian schools are taking advantage of a plan that was only supposed to help Christians. But this reveals the problem with vouchers in a nutshell, right? Like vouchers have always been a Trojan horse. It drains public schools, it deepens inequality, it replaces education with indoctrination, all while taking billions of dollars away from the communities that rely on public education. So again, if Florida wants to stop this, you don't need to spread lies about Islam. You don't need to generalize based on what extremists do. You just have to end vouchers for all private schools. That's it. Public money should serve the public good. It's that simple. They're never going to do it. But I do love that some conservative Christians in Florida just realize their own hypocrisy here because they're very upset that, like 20 Islamic schools are getting public dollars to function. All right, I'm going to stop there for now. What questions do we have here? Oh my God, if I ever heard a great reason not to fund religious schools. Open religious conflict in our country may be coming soon. I'll take issue with the second part of that, which is I don't know that the challenge is going to come from other religions in terms of this conflict pitting everyone against Christian nationalism. Like, I think you're going to see more church-state separation, non-religious advocates fight this than you're going to see Muslims fight this. But this is the whole point. If Christian nationalists are trying to get public dollars to promote their faith, what are the rest of us going to do? I don't even think the Muslims in this case are fighting against Christians. They just want to participate in the program, and Christians don't like it. Most of the church-state separation crowd, on the other hand, just wants to end this program altogether. Go support your public schools. That's what you ought to be doing. They don't realize the hypocrisy. Maybe they don't realize the hypocrisy, but that's what's being pointed out to them now, which is deeply funny to me. And thank you for being a member. I mean, if tax dollars can go to Our Lady of Reluctant Integration, I am not mad at public funds going to, hey, we invented Algebra Academy either. Well played. Nice comment. Yeah, a lot of those Christian schools are way more extreme than anything you're going to find in these Islamic schools. I think people see women have to wear hijabs at these schools, which might seem scary if you're not familiar with it. And I'm not saying I'm a fan of that, but the sort of restrictions they have at these Christian schools is way more extreme than a dress code. How about we cut these stupid voucher programs and invest the money into making public education better? Oh, wait, this is Florida. I know, until they get better people in government at the top of the food chain, it's not going to happen. Florida's education system is going the way of Oklahoma right now. I am more worried about them passing Christian laws. And they're doing a lot of that in Florida, where they have a Republican supermajority, and they are always trying to push the envelope. And if other states beat them to it, they get mad, and then they try to one up it all. Texas does it the same way. Oklahoma does it the same way. It's disturbing because none of this is good for the people in their states. Are we talking about the death camp that is open in Utah? I don't think I know enough about that to comment on it, but I would urge you to email me the articles that talk about it so I can check it out. All right, I'm going to pull up the next story. Give me 1 second here. All right, I missed the question. I'll get back to it later. All right. I want to talk about the Ten Commandments law that passed in Arkansas not too long ago, because this story actually has a fun little twist to it. So let me catch you up on where we are at with the Ten Commandments law in Arkansas. So they passed a law this earlier this year that basically said every public school and college and government space, institution, whatever, they have to put up the KJV 10 Commandments. The posters don't even need a disclaimer saying the supposed historical relevance of it all. You just got to put up the poster. Now, similar laws have already been struck down by courts, and this one was even more egregious than all of those. So there was a lawsuit filed by a bunch of church-state separation groups against this Ten Commandments law. And in August of this year, a federal judge basically said, I'm not ready to rule on this, but since school is starting, let me go ahead and just let you all know where I'm at. And he issued a preliminary injunction saying the people who sued over the Ten Commandments law, they belong to a certain number of school districts. Those school districts cannot put up the Ten Commandments. I'm forbidding them from doing it. And as soon as he did that, the church-state separation group sent an email to like every district in the state, just letting them know, hey, I know school is starting, but this judge just told our school districts they cannot put up the Ten Commandments. It would be illegal. It would be unconstitutional. And that's probably going to happen to all of you too if you try to play this game. So don't do it. Don't listen to the law. Listen to us. We actually know what we're talking about. Guess what happened? And I mentioned this in a segment a few weeks ago. Well, there was another school district that said, we're going to put up the Ten Commandments anyway. And they did. And the church-state separation groups went right back to that judge and said, hey, judge, this other school district is doing the exact same thing as the ones you said cannot do it. What are you going to do about it? And the judge said, okay, see everything I just said to those other school districts? Hey, new school district, you can't put up the Ten Commandments either. And he forced them to take them down. And then like last week, a different school district put up Ten Commandments posters and the judge told them to take them all down. So that's where we're at right now. And everything I just told you applies to K to 12 schools, elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, all that. But right now, until the law is declared unconstitutional, we haven't actually tested if it's illegal to put those signs up on college campuses and like courthouses and things like that. I think there are 11 public colleges in Arkansas, and really, until recently, none of them had put anything up. Well, recently, the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville, they decided to put up the 10 Commandments. And this is what they said to the Arkansas Advocate, which is a local news outlet. The university recently received about 500 donated posters of the 10 Commandments, and we are beginning to install the posters in university buildings and facilities as required under the 10 Commandments law, said their director of media relations and core communications. Okay, so in the administrators' minds, the law says you got to put up the posters, or if they get donated, you could use those to go up instead. And so they're kind of in a predicament here. Do we obey the law or do we defy the law? Because at this point, someone gave us donations, so we are expected to put them up. But if we put them up, we might get sued over it. What do you do? And this is the predicament that Republicans put all of these institutions in. They either got to follow the law and do something illegal or not follow the law, and then they would be accused of breaking the law because you're not following. It's not a good position to be in. So I kind of understand why they felt they had to put it up. But even though they did it, that decision is now backfiring in a really big way. And it involves this guy right over here. This is Andy Kinslow, and he is a graduate of the University of Arkansas Fayetteville who ran an architecture and design firm in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I think they recently rebranded. They have a different name now, but he's still an architecture design guy in Oklahoma. I Googled some of his stuff. Their designs are really impressive and thoughtful and interesting. So this guy graduated from that school. He's gone off to have a career in this field that he really loves. And he's, I guess, really well known. And so what does he do with the success that he's had? Well, for a long time, he said, I want to give back to my college since I wouldn't be here without them. And to that end, he has been funding scholarships at the University of Arkansas Fayetteville, specifically for the Fay Jones School of Architecture and Design. That is the part of the college he graduated from in 1980. And I will show you this really quick. Like, this is one of the scholarships, the Andrew A. Kinslow and Russell W. Kirkpatrick Diversity Award for Design Excellence. I don't even know what that entails, but I just want you to look at this. That's a $1,500 scholarship that students can apply for. Like, do you think that's a lot of money or a little money? I don't know. Any amount of money like that, for a lot of students, that would make a big difference in their lives. So great, good for him. And he does this every year. He also does this one. This is the Andrew A. Kinslow Interior Design Scholarship. And it goes to older students who are interested in pursuing this as a career. And you got to be from Arkansas. That's $1,000. So this guy has been giving $2,500 worth of scholarships every year for a bunch of years now. And he's like, I'm happy with the school. I love the school. Let me pay it forward and help the next generation of people entering my field. That's not an easy thing to do. Good for him. On top of that, I should also tell you, this guy has left the University of Arkansas in his will. He put the School of Architecture in his will. I don't know how much money that would entail. I have to assume it's more than just a few $1,000s. But like, this guy owes a lot to the school and he has paid it forward. But now, according to the Arkansas Advocate, this guy saw what they did with the 10 Commandments posters and he's furious. Check this out. Here we go. As a very strong believer of separation of church and state, UA alum Andy Kinslow said he was angry to learn about the posters. Kinslow, who grew up in Arkansas but now calls Oklahoma home, said he was already contemplating ending his financial support of the university after being told one of his scholarships that referenced diversity needed to be modified to comply with state and federal law. They needed his diversity scholarship to like avoid DEI. because it's Arkansas and they're all afraid of Trump. So this guy's like, I want to support diversity. Diversity is good. And you want to change my diversity scholarship to avoid diversity? Maybe I should just not give you that scholarship. But then learning about the Ten Commandments posters was the tipping point that made him decide to pull both of his scholarships from the Fay Jones School of Architecture and Design and remove the department from his will. He took his money and left. Why would I give money to an institution that is not fighting this law when there are lots of other places that the money could go that would be appreciated? Holy crap, that is a wild, amazing response. Look at this. Kinslow said the law, which feels like someone trying to impose their belief system on everyone else, yeah, because it is, represents religious overstep into public institutions that should be there to serve everyone and not just their interests. I'm very proud to have gone to the University of Arkansas, but I am really saddened that this is happening. Wow. I will tell you, I reached out to this guy personally. I had some questions for him. He did not respond to me, but I will just say what he is doing as a donor. This is what any donor ought to do in a similar position. Withholding donations to any school that complies with Trump edicts and caves to right-wing politicians, complaining is not going to be enough. You have to take your money away from them. You have to kick these schools right in the pocketbooks. Administrators will never learn their lesson otherwise. By the way, I want to point out that article in the Arkansas Advocate, they pointed out that there's a student at the college, his name is Nathan Gray, who is currently working on organizing a teach-in so that students can hear from faculty members and other students well-versed in the Constitution about why the Ten Commandments law is unconstitutional, which, again, good for him. That is fantastic. So I wanted to share that with you because this is not just about Ten Commandments posters. This is how people need to react when we are talking about universities that are not standing on principle, but they are cowering under political intimidation. Because if they are obeying an unjust, unnecessary, anti-educational law, then why does the school even exist? You know, colleges are supposed to be there to educate you, to make you better critical thinkers, to expand your mind. And these people are caving to right-wing authoritarians. Why? Then what's the point of going there? Like, going along with that is complicity. Giving money to a school like that is complicity. Every Ten Commandments plaque is basically a signal that this institution is run by people who care more about indoctrination than education. So you know what? They deserve exactly what they are getting here. And good for Kinslow, at least one donor has the courage to walk away in disgust. And I hope other donors follow suit. This guy isn't just saying, I'm not giving you my money, I'm just keeping it for myself. He has said, I'm going to find a school that actually deserves my money and I'll give it to them. So that's exactly what you want to hear. And I hope he is also calling on decent people at the school to stop rewarding these types of ideologues. Universities are supposed to defend Enlightenment values. And this one doesn't want to do it, so he's taking his money and running. That is a big friggin' deal. He is not taking money away from students. He is giving it to students who go to schools that care about education. That is a good thing. He is making sure the people who receive his scholarships are attending a school that respects those students and respects their minds and don't cave to religious BS. So excellent news. I wanted to share that with you because we don't see a lot of great news when it comes to these Ten Commandments laws, but that is good news. What questions do we have here? Kinslow is my new favorite person, right? I was so happy to see that story. He's playing hard to get. I swear, there are some people I want to talk to, and I will just cold reach out to them sometimes because I'm like, this is an awesome thing you did, and I want to talk to you and ask you questions about it. And sometimes they don't respond, and I'm like, what else do I have to do? It's not like I emailed you 4 minutes ago. More fundamentalist evangelical Christians need to watch the Twilight Zone episode of Eye of the Beholder. It is not just about beauty, but about the troubles in a society without diversity. Is that the infamous Twilight Zone episode where like everyone was like ugly except for one beautiful person? Or am I thinking of a Saturday Night Live sketch where they made fun of the Twilight Zone? I can't remember anymore, but I feel like I'm describing something that fits that vibe. Wow, was not expecting any positivity from that story. Good for him. Yes, agreed. That's the one. Hey, I know something. Good for me. All right, let me pull up the next story. Oh. I think I know the answer to this, but I will tell you, yeah, it is. For some reason, if you go through my like YouTube history, the Knight Rider theme was something I watched way too much of because I listened to the new Doja Cat song and it uses the theme song as a sample in her song, and it's such a good song. Anyway, that's my 2 seconds of I kind of know what's going on in current events, and that's the only thing I know about current events. All right, I'm going to jump to another story here. Okay, I have to tell you about this lawsuit, and I'm just showing you the front cover right here. It's Paul Ostapa versus Train US, Train Technologies, and it was filed in a federal district court earlier this month. And it's not like a long lawsuit, it's 13 pages long, but it is a very interesting story. Here is what happened. For like 16 years, this guy, Paul Ostapa, he worked as an HVAC tech in New York. And he worked for that company, Train Technologies, Train US, whatever. So he's doing HVAC stuff, air conditioners, whatever it is HVAC people do. Good for him. Fine job. Lovely. In 2022, according to the lawsuit, his company did something absolutely unconscionable. They hired a woman to work in his department. I know, I can't believe it either. So this guy, Ostapa, who's a Southern Baptist, he goes up to his boss, apparently. He was trying to send an email to his boss saying, I can't do this anymore. I can't be sent on service calls to companies. They didn't do residential homes. They mostly did companies, buildings, things like that. This guy wanted to write an email to his boss saying, I can't work with her one-on-one. You can't send me to do a job with this lady person because, I don't know, cooties. Also, I'm a Christian. So he was going to send that email to his boss, is what he said. He cannot be left alone with a woman who is not his wife. And some of you know what I'm talking about because this is better known as the Billy Graham rule, because Billy Graham made it famous. Mike Pence has also used it when he was vice president. And like so many things associated with Billy Graham, it's a bad idea and it's wrapped in the cloak of Christianity. Basically, the reason Ostapa said he could not be left alone with this other woman, there were a few reasons. Maybe the optics would look bad. Maybe he thought it could lead to infidelity. Maybe he just wanted to avoid people spreading false rumors about them, which you're a professional doing a job. Just go do your damn job. Why do you think anyone at this place would think anything non-professional if the two of you were sent to go do a job together? Like, what's going on in your company that's what people are saying? But anyway, he didn't give a damn about what his beliefs might mean for his colleague. He didn't think about, well, what if she misses out on opportunities to learn the trade and do her job well and impress her superiors because she's no longer able to go out to do a job because this guy is assigned to it? Has he ever thought about that? I don't think so. And he didn't think about what it would mean for the company because now they got to schedule him around the possibility that he might be placed with her. Like when they're considering the scheduling stuff, they got to be like, okay, we'll send Ostapa and we'll send the woman. Oh, wait, we can't do that. And now they got to, it's just annoying if you're trying to schedule these people to go do a job. So the problem here is that Ostapa was treating this professional relationship as if it were a personal one. He's implying that there's always the possibility of sex, or other people might think there is the possibility of sex, and I want to avoid that. And so he said he wanted a reasonable accommodation to avoid that scenario. So like I said, he was going to send an email to his boss about all this, but before he could hit send, his boss just like walked past him in the office, so they had a one-on-one conversation about it. This is what the lawsuit says. And the manager basically just laughs off what this guy is saying, and he apparently tells Ostapa, I will share this with you right here because it made me laugh. Here you go. Look at number 19. Mr. Audette, who is the manager, laughed at first, telling Paul that he would not have to worry about being attracted to this other woman. Paul would later learn that this woman is a lesbian. So the manager is like, my dude, you do not have to worry that anyone's going to think you're having sex or that you might be tempted to have sex, because I promise you, she ain't interested in you. And Paul quickly retorted that his sincerely held religious beliefs based on scripture must be obeyed irrespective of the woman's looks or sexual preferences, and they were not contingent on the potential for sinful conduct. You see, when Jesus said you can't get woman cooties, he did not care if you were lesbian or bi or trans. Jesus just said, don't be around the lady cooties. And this guy takes his Bible very seriously. Like so many Christians who say they adhere to the Billy Graham rule, he never explains in the lawsuit why he cannot just do his damn job and complete a task with his colleague like normal people. So anyway, the manager hears this. He laughs it off. He's like, my dude, she's not interested in you. But the manager apparently doesn't put up a fight. He just says, whatever, man, it's fine. I won't assign you to work with her one-on-one. Okay, are we good? We're good. And that's the end of that conversation. And I guess for several weeks, those two were not assigned to work by themselves on a project, and it doesn't seem like a big deal. So about 3 months after that conversation, Ostapa, the woman, and another man in their department are assigned to go do a job at some company. And that would not have been a big deal. By Ostapa's own rules, that would not have been a big deal, except the other man apparently had to leave the job early. And it just left Ostapa and the woman working to complete the job. So what did Ostapa do? Well, according to the lawsuit, he put on his big boy pants and he hid the tears, and he just did the damn job. Like, good. That's what you were supposed to do. No big deal, right? Well, according to the lawsuit, it was a big deal. And check out what he says right over here. This is number 23 and 24. Paul was conflicted about how to handle the situation, not wanting to let down his employer or violate the dictates of his faith. So he opted to just finish the job as quickly as possible and leave. Like, yeah, dude, that's what you're supposed to do. Why are you acting like this is a big thing? And then number 24, that encounter caused Paul great inner conflict and emotional turmoil. But after prayer and reflection, he decided that it was a one-time mistake by an ill-informed dispatcher and he let it go. Good for you, Paul. Very brave of you to do the job you get paid to do with someone else also paid to do that job and act like you survived a war. So, anyway, a few months after that happens, Ostapa was doing a solo job for the company, and he was informed by the dispatcher, hey, by the way, dude, we're going to send the lady to come help you complete the job. I don't know what the reason for that is. I'm sure they had a good reason. It wasn't a prank or something. They just said, hey, we're going to send another worker to come out there with you. Ostapa tells the dispatcher, oh, no, you can't do that. She's a woman. And he's like, my manager said you would never do this to me. And so the dispatcher is like, what? All right, I won't send her there, I guess. But then the dispatcher reported that complaint to the HR department, and the company soon met with Ostapa and they put him on administrative leave. And then in October of 2022, they fired the guy altogether. And this is what they say right here on number 35. On October 24th, 2022, Paul received another telephone call from the HR rep and the district office manager informing Paul that his employment with Train Technologies was officially terminated. The basis given for the termination was insubordination for refusal to work with another employee. And he's like, why was I granted this religious accommodation? Why was it not honored or taken into account? And the HR rep says, we have no official record of any such request because it did not go through proper channels. Which is true because, again, he never sent that email. He just had a one-on-one conversation with the manager. So they never had it in writing that they got to help this guy avoid lady cooties. So anyway, Ostapa files a complaint with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which is like the government watchdog for is your company doing things the right way. He said, I'm being discriminated against because of my Christian faith. And the company said, no, he was fired because he wasn't listening to us for many things. And I don't know what else they said. But in any case, I guess a few weeks ago, after years of doing this, the EEOC says, we are not going to investigate this anymore. We're not going to take any action. We're not going to take any action against the company. We're just wiping our hands clean of this. And they basically told Ostapa, now that we are not investigating this, if you want to file a lawsuit, you can go ahead. None of our business. So what I'm reading to you is the lawsuit that he filed, right? So he filed that lawsuit with the help of Liberty Counsel, which is the right-wing legal group best known for representing Kim Davis, the bigoted county clerk from Kentucky who refused to sign marriage licenses for same-sex couples. And she's trying to go to the Supreme Court right now to overturn the Obergefell ruling. That's Liberty Counsel. They're representing this guy too. And they basically say that the company discriminated against Paul on the basis of religion. And this is what they say near the end of this lawsuit. Check out number 57 here. In retaliation for Paul exercising his religious right afforded by Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 to seek reasonable accommodation in light of the conflict between his sincerely held religious beliefs and the requirement of his employment, defendants subjected Paul to adverse employment actions and a hostile work environment, including interrogation and harassment, forced abrupt administrative leave, and termination of his employment. That is a very long way of saying they made this guy do his job with a colleague, and how dare you? He's a Christian. He should not have to do his job. This is the same feeling I get when, like, pharmacists say, well, you want me to dispense birth control to someone who has a prescription for birth control? I cannot do that. I am a Christian. It's like, I don't care. Do your job. That's what you're hired to do. I don't care what you think about the medicine. Is it going to hurt the patient? No. So, like, just fill the damn prescription. So anyway, this is what Liberty Counsel is doing. Now, I want to think this is a slam dunk case, but that may not be true. Religion News Service did an article on this. This is what they said. The Civil Rights Act requires employers to provide reasonable accommodations, but not if doing so creates an undue hardship. I'm going to stop right there. This is what this case is about. Ostapa says, I just asked for a reasonable accommodation. Don't make me do projects with this woman by myself. And the company is saying, you're asking too much. It's unfair. That's going to make us have to hire somebody else, or we don't have the people to like accommodate your scheduling request. That's the question. At what point does someone cross the line? Is his request too far, or should the company have been able to accommodate it? And this article says most legal disputes over religious accommodations, such as the case of a postal worker who objected to working on Sundays for religious reasons, hinge on determining the line between a reasonable accommodation and a hardship. In 2023, the Supreme Court ruled in the postal workers' favor, because of course they did. This is also interesting. In 2019, a sheriff's deputy in North Carolina sued after being fired for refusing on religious grounds to ride alone with a female colleague, but that suit was eventually settled before going to trial. And by the way, this is my favorite one. In 2013, the Iowa Supreme Court ruled that a male dentist had not violated discrimination laws when he fired a female assistant at the urging of his wife. The dentist and his assistant had been texting, and his wife saw that as a threat to the marriage. So this dude fired the assistant, and she sued citing gender discrimination. And basically, the Supreme Court said, no, the friendship between you two was at issue. You guys were getting close. He fired you because you were getting close, not because you were a woman. So too bad for you, assistant. You're out of a job. They also noted the dentist may have treated his assistant badly by firing her, but it wasn't discrimination. So this type of law, it's not clear cut. We have no idea what the federal courts are going to do about it. But I think the situation is interesting in itself. And I think it's a reminder of how corrosive the Billy Graham rule can be when you take it out of a church environment and put it in a corporate setting. Right? Because it essentially sanctions gender-based discrimination. It elevates one guy's fragile sense of virtue over a woman's right to work as an equal. Like, this lady did nothing wrong, but now she can't do certain jobs because he might be assigned to them. That's unfair to her. And the fact that his request is a religious one shouldn't take away from the fact that he is perpetuating this idea that women should be treated like temptations, not as equals, right? So the only way you frame this as a reasonable request is to accept a world where professionalism is impossible for certain people and where a man's paranoia should be allowed to dictate a woman's access to opportunity. So this guy's faith went from some personal conviction to public harm. And he's using religion as a way to defend his inability to control himself. It's weird. And if he's worried about perception, you know how you avoid people talking about you and spreading nasty rumors about what you two may be doing together? Just do the damn job. That's it. That's how you avoid the rumor. And in a modern workplace, if this guy cannot work with a qualified colleague because of her gender, the problem is him, not the company for refusing to accommodate him. So I will stop there. What questions do we have about this crazy story? I want to place my bet on him being angry and or offended if reversed. Yeah, what if the woman said, I can't work with this guy? She wouldn't work with him for the reasons he was willing to say out loud. Yeah, you can imagine if it happened and like, I have reasons, but I don't want to work with this person. Like, it seems very much like one of those things right-wing people would be up in arms about. How dare you? How dare you challenge this qualified man from doing this job? Right? But when it's a guy and he says, but Jesus, they let him get away with anything. Is this guy married and worried about adultery, or single and worried about having no outlet? You know what? I don't know. And I guess it doesn't really matter, does it? Right? Like, I don't know if he's worried of what his wife is going to think, or he's single and he's like, ah, woman, I can't control myself around her. And neither option is great. But again, he has an option. He can just quit his job. No one's forcing him to do it. Whatever his professed reasoning, odds are he's just a misogynist. That's usually what it comes down to. Honestly, if anyone cites the Billy Graham rule and they mean it in like I adhere to the Billy Graham rule, what they're saying is don't leave me around around women. I will be a threat to them. That's what I hear every time someone says it. And again, when Mike Pence basically said this, think about what that means. That means women who work in the White House cannot be left alone with him, which means they just can't do certain jobs, because talking to the vice president is a job a lot of people in the White House might have to do. So Mike Pence is like, I can't be left alone with the woman. That would violate something. And that just means, all right, well, I guess we can't hire women for a lot of these jobs. I happen to think that's unfair to them. What do I know? Wonder if they were interpreting Iowa law or federal law in that Iowa case. You know what? I don't remember the specifics of it, but that was I remember reading about that. Maybe I wrote something about it, but it was such a long time ago. But when I read about when they mentioned that case in the article, I'm like, oh my God, I remember that one. That was a crazy story. Yep, male supervisor wanted to do my annual review with everyone else able to hear because he was afraid of a closed door. Oh my God. And I'm sure that supervisor was fine with the closed door for all the men. And I do wonder, and Catherine, I don't know what your situation was or what type of place you worked in. I do wonder, like, do you complain about it? Do you just roll with it? This is how it goes because you don't want to stir the pot at that point and you want to be in everyone's good graces? Or do you complain about it because you are being treated unfairly? And honestly, it's nobody else's business what they say in the review. So deeply unfair to you, but yeah, that is a consequence of this type of rule. All right, I'm jumping to another story. Give me a minute. Den, this better be a joke. What type of question is this? I knew that. All right. I don't know that I have a ton of slides for this one, but this is just one of those things that's been on my mind for a while. So I just wanted to talk this out for a bit. A few months ago, I went to the American Humanist Association's annual conference, and it was in Chicago. I live near Chicago. It worked out well. But they gave me an award, the Humanist Media Award, which meant a lot to me. I'm honored. It was very nice. They let me speak for a little bit of time when accepting the award, and I could have talked about the work I do here. But instead, they let me speak about whatever I want. So I told them, here's a thing I have a problem with in our movement. And here's kind of the argument I made to the American Humanist Association audience. We know church-state separation is under attack right now by the Republican Party, by Christian nationalists, by conservatives in general. We know science is under attack. We know there's a lot of pseudoscience, whatever the hell RFK Jr. is doing. It's very bad. Public education is being decimated. We don't even have shared facts anymore. It would be a good time to have a lot of prominent, evidence-based, reasonable, rational thinkers. And that used to be our thing as atheists. If you remember, if you are old enough to go back 20 years when the God Delusion was coming out, Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens, Daniel Dennett, all that new atheism stuff, what was the argument they were making in their books? Like, you should be an atheist, yes, but here is how you think critically and rationally. And by extension, that means you should ditch religion. Their whole thing is, we're the smart ones. Whether you want to think that's arrogant or not, that was kind of what they were arguing. And for a lot of people who read those books and maybe they never thought about atheism or they were afraid of it, it had an impact. Like, I don't like a lot of those dudes today, but I can't deny the fact that there was a movement of sorts. And you could see in polls, like, what religious label do you use? Well, when people were talking about the new atheism, those polls started inching upward. And it's not just because of like Dawkins and all that. You had the George W. Bush administration doing a lot of religious stuff. You had a much broader spreading of the internet and Google and the ability to question your faith privately, right? So there's a lot of reasons for that. But right now, we are in a place where we need good, reasonable, rational thinkers making the case for like what we ought to be thinking about these issues. So who are the prominent atheists of today doing that? Good luck trying to answer that question. Because I mean, some of the most famous atheists, who are the most famous atheists of our time these days? Dawkins, he's transphobic and says a lot of stupid stuff. Bill Maher, he basically caters to right-wing talking points when it comes to anti-woke stuff. Like, he is not some progressive liberal champion. No one says like, oh, you want a smart guy? Bill Maher is your guy. No one says that. So the point is, like, are there any prominent atheists these days who can spread reason and science in an effective way? I mean, there are some prominent scientists, Bill Nye, Neil deGrasse Tyson, whatever, but their big thing is we spread science. We are not here trying to push for atheism, which is their right, but okay. But I will challenge you and say this. There are a lot of people who are effectively talking about atheism and critical thinking, and they are good science communicators. The thing is, you won't see them on TV anymore, and they're not writing books. If you know them, and by the way, I see this in the comments, someone's mentioning it right now, there are some people who do this very effectively, and I'm sure a lot of you, if you're watching this on YouTube right now, you probably know who some of these guys are. But I will say, you know what? I'm going to pull that comment back up. White guy, white guy, white guy. I don't know Paul's well, but I'm pretty sure he's a white guy as well. And by the way, I like these guys. They're very good at what they do. We are friends. I know some of those guys personally. But my point is, those guys are awesome at what they do, but they tend to be online. They're reaching a younger audience, a different audience, and they're not the ones who are prominent in other ways. And this is partly just the siloing of our media. Like, there may be someone super famous, but they're only known to a smaller group of people. But like, wouldn't it be great if there were more women, more people of color who were boosted up because we said, hey, you should listen to what this person is saying. Yeah, they're online, but they have a huge audience. This is the thing. You guys may know Matt Dillahunty. He has a huge audience online for what he does. Aaron Ra, Forrest Valkai, they have huge audiences because they're very good at what they do. And yet, even despite their huge audiences, they're reaching a specific audience. But guess what? There are some women who are amazing science communicators. They have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of subscribers on YouTube. But the atheist organizations and the people who belong to them probably don't know who they are. There are really great people of color who talk about the harm that religion has done to them, but because they are popular on TikTok and Instagram, they're basically unknown to a lot of older people and the organizations. And here's where I'm going with this. Most of those people who are fantastic communicators, and if you watch them, you really like them and you want to see what they have to say, a lot of them don't do this full time. Very few atheists talk about atheism full time. Can you imagine what some of those YouTubers and TikTokers and writers online might be able to do if they could do this as a full-time job? And they didn't have to worry about their next paycheck. They could just focus on communicating what they do well. That's the thing. If you write a great book, sorry, no one's going to read it. If you are a science communicator who also talks about atheism, most of the people I know who do that work don't get to do it full time. They got to take on a full time job so that they could do this as a hobby. There are very few people, and I will include myself in the batch, who get to do this full time and talk about this stuff and write about this stuff. And so here's what I said to the American Humanist Association. I like the work they do. I fully support the work the American Humanist Association does, and American Atheists, and the Freedom from Religion Foundation. But at the same time, they're kind of using an old playbook. They will promote their material through newsletters. The FFRF will do full page ads in the New York Times. They might put that Ronald Reagan Jr. ad on MSNBC sometimes. And they will do a lot of good work, but a lot of people don't know about the stuff they do. That's just the fact of the matter. And so here's the thing. Here's my push. On the flip side, in the conservative movement, a lot of the most prominent voices on the right, they didn't just magically get there. They might have been people who started off talking shit on YouTube, but then some rich donor, and there are so many of them on the right, said, I'm going to throw a giant bag of money at you because I like your style. I like what you do. You name the prominent right-wing person today, like a young online person, odds are there was a very rich person who got them to that point. That is true of like Tucker Carlson, the Breitbart website. Tucker Carlson does the Daily Caller. I think Charlie Kirk got his start that way. Ben Shapiro got his start that way. Here's my question. Why aren't these large atheist organizations, some of which have budgets that are in the millions of dollars per year, why aren't they doing more to support online content creators who are really good at what they do? Why aren't they throwing money at them, not to advertise for the AHA, but to say, you are a great science communicator, you should do this work, and we want to help you do this work, so here's some money so you don't have to worry about it. Go make more videos because we want to spread science. And instead of doing it internally, which is always a hard thing to do, you're already succeeding. Go do it. Or, you know what? If there's a communicator who seems like they would be good, why don't you get proper lighting and equipment because you're a voice people need to hear? Those organizations like the American Humanist Association, they have the resources to pull it off, I would think. So I realize some of this is self-serving, or it sounds like it's self-serving because, hey, I'm a content creator, but I will just say, I already have the luxury to do this full time. This isn't about me. I want them to get more people from different backgrounds and different religions to also do this full time. Because I think if you boost those voices, we would all be better off, right? And I asked the AHA, what sort of future could we create if, with the kind of financial resources the American Humanist Association has, you could support the people who are advancing your shared values, and maybe the two sides don't even know each other. And here's the amazing thing. I gave this talk to the AHA. I found out that the day after, by sometime in the next 12 hours, one of their donors went to the AHA and said, that sounds like a good idea. I want to make that happen. And he gave the AHA a lot of money, specifically to support online content creators. I honestly don't even know who did it. Doesn't matter. But the reason I bring this up is because this week, the American Humanist Association just announced that they are launching their creator program. And this is like one slide in a pitch that they are making to a lot of their donors. But basically, here's what they're doing. They're like beta testing this thing, but this is the nuts and bolts of it. They are giving away $10,000 a month, and that's their budget, $10,000 a month for like a year. And right now they're testing it out. So they went to a few YouTubers, and they said, you make good videos. Can you make a video about why you're a humanist? Because you are a humanist. And they worked with the content creator and said, what sort of video would you like to make? The content creator said, I could do this. And the AHA said, that sounds like a cool idea. Here's some money. And specifically, they said, if you get X number of views based on your subscribers, we will give you this much money. And by the way, if you sell merch via your links on YouTube, we'll give you a portion of that too. And they did this with a bunch of creators, specifically, just to name a couple right here. This is Alyssa Grenfell. And honestly, if you're on YouTube right now watching this, go look up her channel. She made a video talking about why she's a humanist. And this is her special page where she's directing people to. They can become an AHA member, and they can buy merch from this page as well. But basically, she's an amazing content creator who I was not familiar with, but she makes great videos. And the AHA said, we like the work you do. You should do more of it. They did the same thing to Durante Lamar, who's another content creator, who is a former pastor who talks about like why the Bible is wrong. He has a smaller audience, but he's making really compelling videos. And the AHA said, same thing to him. Make a video about your humanism. Give us a shout out somewhere in the video. But instead of a lot of YouTubers where they're like, blah, 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 I'm making this video. Hey, by the way, you should check out Ground News because they're a great website that does whatever it is they do. Instead of promoting some random secular company, why not support one of these atheist groups? And they're sponsoring the videos, literally. They also did this to Drew McCoy, who goes by Godless Engineer online. And he's made, I say Godless Engineer. Godless Engineer, John, is a great creator. A genetically modified skeptic is Drew. He also has worked with the AHA to help them develop this program. And he's kind of a guy I go to a lot for advice on how I should make content as well. But to get people on board like that who have huge audiences and then test out this theory, like, will it work if we give you this money and you are sponsoring us? Is it good for you? Is it good for the organization? They're testing it out right now. And if it works, they're going to maybe move to Instagram. They'll move to TikTok. They will move to blogs, podcasts, whatever. It'll happen in the long run. Right now, they're just testing it out. I think with YouTube, because it's the best known platform, and it's a one-stop shop for it all. And the AHA said, like, all of this helps creators grow their impact by bringing humanism into the conversation, but it's also helping the AHA connect with a younger audience, maybe future members as well. So honestly, I think that is a very effective thing to do, far more than what a lot of these groups have done, which is like, hey, we'll give you $1,000 for a scholarship if you write an essay for us. Except the problem with that is, who cares about those essays? Do you read the essays that win scholarships? I don't. And those essays never really leave a mark. Like, if you want to give scholarships, go reward activists who are doing the work. This program is rewarding activists who are doing the work, and they're already good at it. They don't need to be taught how to do it. This isn't their first time thinking about church-state separation, right? So anyway, I asked Drew, genetically modified skeptic, how this program is working for him so far. And he told me he has worked with a lot of sponsors for his videos, but he said this program offers more flexibility and collaboration than any other video sponsor I have worked with, which is a big deal. By the way, in addition to Alyssa and Durante and Drew, there's one more person in their beta testing. The AHA is also supporting Apostate Aladdin, who is an ex-Muslim who has like 50,000 subscribers on YouTube. So that's their initial phase, and they're going to test it out, figure out how to change it, and they'll try to expand it in the future. So anyway, I mean, the one thing I would add to this is there is a little bit of risk here, because all of these initial collaborations are being done on a video by video basis, and everyone's kind of on the same page, and that's fine. And I was curious, well, what happens if these content creators don't like a decision the AHA makes? What if they want to criticize the AHA? What if they make a video about something else that's controversial and the AHA doesn't like what they made? Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to pull the funding or what's going to happen? And the truth is, there's no real good answer to that. That is the risk you take when you are supporting a content creator and you give them the leeway they need to make the stuff they do. And I don't know how the two sides are going to work all this out. That's for them to figure out. That's why they're testing it out right now. But I do think if the goal is to reach new people, wider audiences, audiences that the traditional atheist groups never tap into, younger people, women, people of color, more LGBTQ people, things like that, I think this is the way to go. Find people who are already connecting with those communities and then give them the tools or the money they need to keep doing it so that they can expand the work that they do. This is what the right has done for years, and we are watching it play out right now, and we're all worse off because of it. What if the good people tried this instead? So I'm very excited to see how this plays out. And for the content creators I just mentioned, I strongly urge you to go check out their channels because they are so good at what they do. I am jealous. And if you go to the American Humanist Association's website, I think you can already learn more about this program. And that's it. I just wanted to share that with you. I'm so excited. I've heard about this program for months now, and they finally allowed me in to get a sneak peek at like the way they're going about doing this. I'm just so proud of them, and I'm excited for the creators that they're going to help, and super exciting. That's it. What questions you got? Well, it's victory for you and everyone. Good going. Thank you so much. I'm so excited. I think it's a victory for like this shared atheist verse that we all kind of live in. Because if you're watching this video, you probably watch other atheist content creators online, whether they are straight up atheists or they're like ex-Mormons, ex-Jehovah Witnesses, ex-Muslims. A lot of people come at this from a lot of different angles. And that's the thing. Some of them are very good at what they do. I want to spread their message. And again, the reason I write articles. You saw my newsletter. I do YouTube. I do a podcast. And yet, those are all very different audiences that reach very different people. And the traditional organizations, American Atheists, FFRF, they reach a certain kind of person who may not listen to podcasts or watch YouTube, right? How do we get more people involved? And even how many of you have had the experience where you're like, I'm an atheist, but like, wait, there's a whole movement? There are organizations that are for atheists? That's wild. What do you people do? Just sit around and not pray? Like, no, there are groups doing important work and filing lawsuits and doing all and building communities. And how do you get these two sides to even know they exist? I feel like this program is one that, creates a rising tide that lifts all boats. Is it tacky to ask for links to these folks in the description for the replay? I will make sure when I clip this and put it back on YouTube, I will have links to the content creators I just mentioned. And I think, Den, if you are watching this, if you could put links to their channels in the comments so people can find it right now, that would be fantastic. And most scientists aren't exactly rolling in financial security. I've been planning a botany-focused YouTube channel for nearly a decade, but I'm in academia and have zero time. I think this is a really, really good point because, like I said, there are some science communicators. I remember on TikTok during COVID, there were some people who were trying to explain how this virus works, how the vaccine works, and they were so good at what they did. They kept it short and simple, and yet they were not dumbing it down for anybody. And it's like, why is this person not doing this all the time for everything? Right? By the way, there is a left-wing organization that just sprouted up like last year, basically with the same idea. There are people, like we know there are a gazillion right-wing podcasts and media outlets, and they took over the entire media. And when Donald Trump was campaigning in 2024, he appeared on every one of those shows, right? And Kamala Harris appeared on none of those shows on the left. Well, what if we found a way to promote really good progressive people online? And there's an organization, I think it's We Are Chorus, that is literally saying, what if we just gave left-wing content creators money to do their thing so we can boost them and help them do their thing, because the more people they reach, the better it is for all of us. So this is not a new idea, but our movement has not done this before. Movement. And this is also true for science, like you said, because there's a lot of science communicators who don't get funding either. What if atheists gave 10% of their income to creators? They won't, because they don't care about the harms of religion more than the Christians care about your soul. I mean, here's the thing. No one's going to force atheists to give anything they don't want, but this is the changing media landscape. If you like what certain creators do, you should support them directly. If you like a local newspaper, you should support them and get a subscription directly. That has to happen. That is what's happening on the right. And unfortunately, they're really good at this. And people on the left, and that includes like generally a lot of church state separation people, atheists, science communicators, political pundits, things like that. They don't have the funding for it. And unless people support what they do, it's never going to get bigger. And listen, I'm happy to take anyone's money, but this isn't even about me. There are so many voices I sometimes stumble across on social media, and I'm like, why don't you have a bigger audience? You're really good. I've seen so many YouTube videos from people who have like 1,000 subscribers, relatively low for like any big channel, but they make such good content. And it's like, do more of this. You're very good at it. But I know why they don't, because they don't have time, because they have lives and kids and jobs, and they can't juggle everything. So at some point, the hobby is what goes away. What if you gave them some comfort financially so that they could make their hobby their career? Very few good blanks get to profess their theological stance full time, too. Many of the famous religious folks are grifters. We got to be less snobby, but let's not grift. I don't disagree with the first sentence there. I don't think any of this is a grift at all. I think we're supporting voices we want to hear more of. You buy a book from an author you like because you like the stuff they make. And if you like an author, you might get everything they write, even if you haven't read the book yet. This is the same version of that. I like your videos. I want you to make more videos. Here's my way of chipping in. That's kind of how Patreon works too, right? And I will say, while it is true that there are also a lot of religious people who don't get to do what they do full time, it would be very easy to find a job where I get to just promote Christianity full time. You can get a job at a church. You may not make a ton of money that way, but you can do it full time. You could do it as a career. That is true of most large religious organizations. That is not the same for the non-theistic community. I would honestly like to see an atheist organization that specifically focuses on helping the poor and needy throughout the world. I will tell you, I chaired an organization that focused on exactly that. And at some point, the money wasn't there. People were not supporting it as much as we needed to in order for it to continue. But if you're interested, it was called Beyond Belief, Foundation Beyond Belief. And at some point, we had to shut it down. The people didn't want to give just as an atheist vehicle to help various charities do amazing work. So I love the idea. It has been tried directly. That one did not work. So right now, like if I'm an atheist and I want to help the poor and needy throughout the world, my best option is to give to a charity that I support. And by the way, I will say there are good religious charities that also do that work. Not all of them are trying to proselytize while they do it. All right, I'm going to jump to something else. Give me a minute here. I think I know. Ah, yes. Cannibalism. No. Animals eating animals always strikes me as a weird thing. All right. Let's talk about the Anglican Church of North America, which is a sentence I don't think I've ever said before. A little bit of backstory here. In 2003, the Episcopal Church in the United States, that's the formal name of that denomination, they elected an openly gay bishop. It was huge news at the time in 2003, very controversial in 2003 to appoint an openly gay bishop. And like 6 years later in 2009, they said that, if you're in any ordained position in our church, if you're openly gay, openly lesbian, it's fine. And also, if any bishop, if any ordained person wants to bless a same sex union, same sex marriage, we're fine with it. So, baby steps, but pretty important baby steps right there. So, going back, 2003, they elect an openly gay bishop. That infuriated a lot of conservatives in the Episcopal Church. And a lot of them, starting around that time, they started to leave the denomination entirely and form their own pro bigotry sect called the Anglican Church of North America, the ACNA. And as we stand today, the ACNA has over 1,000 congregations and about 128,000 members. Now, the Episcopal Church in the United States has like over 1.5 million members. They're still much, much bigger, but 128,000 people is not nothing. So the ACNA is small, but it's growing. But I would guess a lot of people aren't too familiar with it. But the point is, the ACNA is made up of people who presumably felt we have to break away from the Episcopal Church because we need to maintain our moral purity, right? Those pesky liberals in the Episcopal Church they're too woke. They're being too nice to gay people. We can't have that. We are men of Jesus. So anyway, they formed their little pro-bigotry sect. And since the ACNA formed, they get to elect their own pope. It's the Archbishop. And they are currently on Archbishop number 3. And it's this dude. His name is Steve, which just seems weird to say, but there you go. This is Stephen Wood. He's 62 years old, and he was recently made the 3rd Archbishop of the ACNA, the Anglican Church of North America. And the reason Steve is in the news is because the Washington Post last week published a bombshell of an article, and I will just show you this. Here's the headline, by the way. Let's go up here. U.S. Anglican Church Archbishop accused of sexual misconduct, abuse of power. What the hell did you do, Steve? Let's find out. The denomination's senior most official, Archbishop Stephen Wood, 62, has been accused by a former children's ministry director of putting his hand against the back of her head and trying to kiss her in his office in April of 2024. Not like 30 years ago, like last year, before he was made Archbishop. The incident allegedly occurred 2 months before he was elected to the helm, according to a new church presentment. What is a presentment? Basically, this guy, if he put his hand in the back of her head and tried to kiss her, is that illegal? Is it criminal? The answer is no. You don't go to the cops for that one. But you do have to wonder, hey, this guy is the Archbishop. Clearly that crossed an ethical line. How do we tell church officials, like, how do you file a lawsuit or a police report within the church? Well, you present a formal documentation of what he did. That's the presentment. So basically, people went to church authorities and said, this is what Steve did. So this occurred 2 months, and the Washington Post got a copy of it. And the woman who gave an interview to the Post also accused Wood of giving her thousands of dollars in unsuspected payments from church coffers before the alleged advance. Wood, a married father of 4 sons, remains the rector of St. Andrew's Church in the Charleston, South Carolina area, and a bishop overseeing a diocese of more than 40 churches across the South. So this dude, who's the archbishop, he still runs his own congregation. He still leads a whole bunch of congregations, and he's the guy in charge of everything now. And before he tried to make an advance on this woman, because when you're archbishop, they let you do it, he was just handing her money from the tithing bank account, just giving her cash. Why? Maybe to butter her up. It's not his money. What else did she say here? I'll come back to that. Oh, this one, I'll come back to that as well. I wanted to show you what the woman said here. It's way down. This is a long article. A lot of stuff about Steve. Yeah, look at this. This is the woman speaking. Her name is Claire Buxton. And again, she spoke to the Washington Post, so I don't feel like I have to hide her name. I was devastated when he became archbishop. It was the responsibility of the bishops to vet him, and they failed at it horribly. Now, I just want the truth to come out so other people don't get hurt and that the church is held accountable. So that is a fair point. Basically, she worked at the church he currently oversees, and she gave the church a detailed account of inappropriate behavior by this guy. Again, like I said, it's not illegal, it's not criminal, it's just unethical, right? Someone in his position should not be doing any of this. And the church's reaction when she wanted to go to the church and say, this guy's done something wrong, she had to give them the presentment, right? Well, it wasn't just her who gave it. There were bishops who signed off on that and other parishioners who signed off on it, basically saying, yeah, we know this is true. She's talked to us about this for a while. We're backing her up on this. So, hey, church, do something about this. What did the church do when they got that presentment? They told the dozen priests and parishioners who signed it, you got to sign it again under penalty of perjury. Basically threatening them with religious punishment as a way to make them back off. And the church has said since then, like, we're not trying to threaten them. We just want to make sure they're not lying to us. And the people who signed that thing are like, yeah, but you don't ask everyone to sign like a perjury letter or anything. So that's weird. But that's just one of the allegations against this guy, okay? The other allegation is that he was giving this woman money just from the tithing bank account. That's weird. But there's another allegation too, and this involves one of Wood's colleagues whose name is Stewie. His name is Stuart Rook III, and Stewie is a bishop from the Midwest, and apparently he has been accused of letting men who have histories of violence or sexual misconduct hold leadership positions in his diocese. And he's apparently mishandling allegations of abuse. Now, those may not be crimes, but they are signs that maybe this guy should not be in a position of power. And so he has also had to go through like a church trial of sorts. What happened to Stewie? Testimony in Stewie's trial, which was conducted privately on Zoom, wrapped up in mid-October. Hey, that's like a week or two ago. A verdict from the court's 7-member panel of judges, a group of bishops, priests, and parishioners, is expected to arrive later this year. Stewie declined to comment through a diocese spokeswoman who cited a court directive prohibiting him from media interviews during the trial. Sure, why not? So, interestingly enough, when these allegations first came to light against Stewie, guess what he said? This is an article from Religion News Service from just this week. Check this out. Facing allegations he mishandled abuse incidents in his Anglican church in North America's Diocese of the Upper Midwest, Bishop Stewie wrote to then Archbishop Foley Beach, and he said, both my diocese and the ACNA got hit this summer by a vicious spiritual attack of the enemy. I believe this is the case because both of us, both entities, are doing robust gospel work, and Satan hates us. Yeah, buddy, it was Satan. Satan was the problem. Sure. But that's not all. Guess what? There's another allegation in the midst of all of this. This one is just plain funny. We're going back to Steve here, the Archbishop. Not that. I'll show you this. Beyond confronting the allegation of making an unwanted advance on his employee, Steve also faces complaints from priests that he plagiarized sermons and bullied and disparaged church staffers in the years before he became Archbishop. The presentment accuses Steve of violating his ordination vows, committing sexual immorality, and bringing scandal and offense upon his office. So not only was this guy an alleged sexual misconduct guy, and not only was he taking money and handing it to the woman he was trying to seduce, he's also just stealing everyone's writing. There were a lot of jokes I saw online this week, basically insinuating, I mean, the sexual misconduct is bad enough, but plagiarism? My God. The Daily Beast had a headline, Archbishop accused of being Archbishop accused of being sex-abusing sermon plagiarist. The plagiarist being really, that's the one. Now, the ACNA told the Daily Beast that all these allegations occurred before this dude was made Archbishop. But I don't get why that makes a difference. Like, even if the timeline there is accurate, that makes their elevation of the dude look way worse. Like, what is the background check you do on a guy before you make him the Archbishop? Did they not even use the 10 Commandments as a checklist? Did no one do a background check? Did no one talk to this guy's friends and family and colleagues about what's he like? Because we're about to make him Pope. Is there any reason we should not make him Pope? I don't know. In addition to all of that, this is also from Religion News Service. The ACNA is dealing with so many other scandals right now. This is also, again, Religion News Service. In July of 2021, a mother went public with allegations that Mark Rivera, a one-time lay leader at Christ Our Light Anglican Church in Illinois, had sexually abused her 9-year-old daughter. At least 9 other people have also shared grooming or sexual misconduct allegations against Rivera, who has since been convicted of felony sexual assault and felony child sexual assault. Yeah, okay, that guy seems bad. What else we got here? More than 10 clergy and other lay leaders have been accused of misconduct as a result. And Stewie stood trial. We already talked about that. Oh, wait, there's this too. The denomination has been shaken by dust-ups involving other bishops. One ACNA bishop was defrocked in 2020 due to his porn use. That's not the same level as the rest of these. I don't know why we're getting rid of that guy. In 2024, another bishop, Todd Atkinson. Why do these guys all have comically funny white names? But Bishop Todd was ousted for inappropriate relationships with women. And I'm only telling you this, like, this would be disturbing news for any denomination, but it is wild that it is happening in a denomination that only exists because they were like, you know what an unforgivable sin is? Supporting gay people. We're the moral purists here, so we got to form our own church. And guess what? Allegations of sexual abuse everywhere. And it now goes all the way to the top. Abby Nye, I want to mention her. Abby Nye is a member of ACNA TOO. It's like the Me Too of the ACNA, ACNA 2. And she helps survivors of abuse within the ACNA. Well, she wrote about all this, and this is what she wrote. Here we go. Too many Christians experience horrific abuse in church and tell themselves it's just that one church. It was an unhealthy church, a cult, a high control group, and other churches are safer. Refugees fleeing the Southern Baptist Convention, Presbyterian Church in America, and other fundamentalist Christian groups see the ACNA as a haven. Instead of finding sanctuary, they often encounter church leaders who are unable to care for them. These churches do not understand the dynamics of abuse, and they are incredibly unsafe for wounded people. I mean, that is harsh and sadly very true. And at some point, the ACNA members have to understand that these problems are not limited to a few bad leaders. There is moral rot at the heart of the denomination. Because a church that was founded in protest of inclusion and compassion, they were always going to collapse for being bad dudes. It's like the Republican Party. It's like, we're the party of family values. Oh, who are you going to elect? The worst father and husband in human history. We love immigrants, and that's why we want to kick them out and terrorize them with ICE. Like, they're always hypocrites. They're always telling on themselves, and too many people believe their lies to begin with, and then they just ignore it when those stated values are ignored, right? So anyway, what did you expect? None of this was surprising to me. A denomination that proudly stood against their idea of sin cannot confront the obvious sin in their own sanctuaries. I will stop there. What other questions you got here? Turns out the piggy question was actually a good transition to, yes, an entire story about men who are pigs. Boys will be boys. Yes, and church will make sure they stay that way. Conservative churches always look the other way. Like, you thought it was the Catholic Church only? No. It's always. It's everyone. Churches don't have HR, do they? Some of them, I mean, I think I mentioned this in a while back. Like, there are churches that take out insurance against like sex predators. Like, just in case we happen to have one at this church and we get sued over it, their insurance covers it. That's a real thing that some churches actually buy, sex predator insurance. I think the Catholic Church does that sometimes. So I don't know if they have HR, but like, you can't go to the bishop. You can't go to the higher ups in the religion to take care of a church problem because, like, I think someone said this in the comment thread. What are HR departments? They're not there for you. They're there to protect the company. You mean anti-trans bigots are happy to protect abusers? How shocking. How shocking. Yes, this comment has been sarcasm. That is correct. All right. I'll jump to something else. Got a couple more for you, then I'll call it a night. I don't know the answer. Ooh, interesting. By the way, this has nothing to do with this live stream. If you are a fan of trivia, there is a thing called Learned League, and I play it. It's like a trivia competition, but it only takes like 2 minutes out of your day. And go look it up. If you need an invite, let me know. It's fantastic. I've been doing it for a couple years now. I love it. It's hard, but it's super fun. And I'm sure if people play it in the comments, you will talk about how awesome it is. But check out Learned League, Learned, and Google it and find out about it. It's so much fun, and I look forward to it every season. It's awesome. Okay, let me talk about a thing. Let me show you this guy right here. This right here is Timu Seth MacFarlane. It's actually Micah Beckwith. He is the lieutenant governor of Indiana. He is not a nobody. He is a high-ranking politician, right? He's also a Christian nationalist, and he has a long history of saying really horrible things and believing very horrible things. Just to give you a quick rundown, this guy has said the LGBTQ movement is operating out of a demonic playbook. He has said the 3/5 compromise that you'll remember from like your history class was a good thing. And I think his argument there is like enslaved people might have been counted as nothing, but we counted them as 3/5 of a person. So yay. He also said his own election was a choice between godly boldness and the Jezebel spirit. All of you, I suppose, represent the Jezebel spirit. He has also argued that the people who support church-state separation are, quote, the LGBTQ community trying to support Hamas, which I feel is just like throwing buzzwords at the wall and seeing what sticks. And the last time I talked about this guy, it wasn't that long ago, but he was asked on an actual talk show. Like, Indiana has very strict anti-abortion laws because it's a red state. And they asked him, would you allow exceptions to the anti-abortion law for victims of child abuse? And he said, I would be open to that on one condition. As long as the rapist gets murdered, I would be cool with it. Because, you know, he's so pro-life that as long as someone dies, he's happy. So that is Micah Beckwith for you. And the reason I bring him up is that he was doing an interview recently, and he was asked about Zoran Mamdani, who is the New York City mayoral candidate who seems poised to win the election very soon. And honestly, it's hard to know what Mamdani's critics at this point are more afraid of. Is it the fact that he's Muslim, that he's a democratic socialist, that he's brown, that he's charismatic, that he's handsome, that like people seem to like him? Like all of that, however, scares Micah Beckwith. So here's the thing. He appeared, Micah Beckwith, appeared on an anti-immigration podcast. It's called Save Heritage Indiana, that just sounds bad right there. But he appeared on this anti-immigration podcast, and the host, who is not important here, asked him, how do we stop people like Zoran Mamdani and Ilhan Omar, the congresswoman who is also Muslim? How do we stop them from getting elected? Because, and the host said this, because they don't represent American values. Now, interestingly enough, I was thinking about this. He said they don't represent American values. Why not? Is it because they're both Muslim? He didn't say that. He implied it. I found it interesting. He did not mention some of the like white progressive Democrats who believe many of the same things as Ilhan Omar and Zoran Mamdani, but he didn't say they don't represent American values. He picked on the two Muslims. It's kind of like when Donald Trump says certain people have low IQs and it's always black people every single time. It's that sort of thing. Very much a dog whistle, right? Now, if you are Micah Beckwith and you're just a politician, you could say, I'm going to stop you right there. Why don't they represent American values? Of course they represent certain American values. I just happen to disagree with them, but they're allowed to run, and I hope they're good at what they do. But on policy issues, we disagree. Do you remember John McCain did that when he was running against Barack Obama? And I don't like John McCain at all, but he basically shut a woman down when she implied that Obama was anti-American. He said, no, he's a good family man. We disagree on stuff. That's what Micah Beckwith should have said. He did not say that. But instead, Micah Beckwith agreed that Omar and Mamdani do not represent American values because he basically said, we're a Christian nation. The implication being, if you're not Christian, you don't represent American values. Let me play for you what he said.
We are a Christian nation, but we are increasingly becoming a non-Christian people. So a Christian government, a Christian value system So the Judeo-Christian ethic, the Decalogue, Leviticus 19, Blackstone's common law was taken right from Scripture. Our founders took right from that to create the system of governance. It's all based in the Judeo-Christian ethic. So while someone like an Ilhan Omar is welcome to be here legally, that does not mean she has a right to change the foundations of this nation. That the Supreme Court just ruled in the Kennedy case that longstanding historical tradition is the constitutional precedent. So what's the longstanding historical tradition in America? It's Christian values. It was not rooted in Islam. It was not rooted in socialism, Marxism. It was rooted in Christian, Judeo-Christian ethic and capitalism. And so when a socialist Marxist like Mandami tries to force his values onto New York, I would say, no, you're not welcome to do that, because the longstanding historical tradition is constitutional. What you're bringing is something new. You're trying to remove the foundations.
I know this is not the point, but did you hear near the end when he had to say Zoran Mamdani's name, he said Mandami? As someone with a very unusual name that a lot of people mispronounce, it's one thing to get it wrong the first time, but when someone's name, you hear it over and over and you still mispronounce it, you're doing it on purpose. Like Cuomo's been doing that a lot. Anyway, it's just disrespectful. But just to state the obvious here, the casualness with which this guy slanders Omar and Mamdani it's disturbing, but it's also just so commonplace among Republicans these days. So like, it's frustrating. Just to state the obvious, our historical tradition is not rooted in Christianity. Like, go look up the Treaty of Tripoli, in which John Adams, when he was president, signed, where it said the government of the United States of America is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion. And even if you want to argue some of the founders were Christian, many were not. And the ones who were did not practice the sort of white evangelical Christianity that most of these elected Republicans practice today. And that's a side issue almost. Like, what are the values that this guy thinks Mamdani is going to force onto New York City? What did he say? He said, they're trying to, oh my God, I lost it here. He said Mamdani is trying to force his values onto New York. And I would say, no, you are not welcome to do that. What values is Mamdani trying to force onto New York City? His platform is like faster buses, more affordable housing, free childcare, basic human decency, a mayor who doesn't suck shit all the time, to paraphrase the Onion headline. Like, there's nothing on his platform about destroying Christianity. I looked. It's not there. And by the way, the truth is he literally could not force any of those things onto New York City, even if he wanted to, because he's not a king. He doesn't have the unilateral power to do that stuff. And you know what? Maybe he won't be able to achieve it anyway. But by working to achieve those goals, like, I think his fundamental belief seems to be the government can try to do things that help you out. And if you pressure your politicians, you can actually have nice things from the government. The city doesn't have to be horrible. People who live in New York City can and should be proud of what they can do together. Those are his values. That's apparent. I mean, those are values worth championing. And this idea that, oh man, this guy is scary, his values are horrible, they're anti-American. Please elaborate. What exactly do you think on his platform is horrible? They never say that. They just want to scare you. Like, yeah, his values are bad because brown, Muslim. That's it. That's all they ever have. And by the way, he would be welcome to do all that stuff if he got elected. You know why? Because that's how democracies work. That's how elections work. Guys like Beckwith are scared of guys like Mamdani because he is young and handsome and charismatic. He's a liberal Muslim who is not afraid of challenging conservatives. And by the way, Democrats who deserve it. And also, I'm just saying, as someone who's not from New York City, Mamdani is just really damn good at the art of politics. Like, there's a reason he's filling arenas for his campaign rallies and exciting a base of voters who would otherwise have checked out and just thought, you know what, there's nothing in this campaign for me. And I will even say this, I don't like Donald Trump. Donald Trump is good at the art of politics for the sort of base he wants to cultivate. J.D. Vance, horrible at the art of politics. Micah Beckwith, horrible at the art of politics. That guy, Beckwith, he's just a goober who goes on right-wing podcasts because no one's lining up to listen to him say anything. He has power, but he doesn't have respect. Right now, Mamdani has respect. He doesn't have power yet. So, like, if Beckwith wanted to criticize maybe the feasibility of Mamdani's policy proposals, okay, fine. But that doesn't make his right-wing base froth at the mouth. So instead, he's going with like scary Marxist Muslim. That's the only like phrasing and rhetoric his voters understand. Right? He already knows that if he just does that, his listeners will fill in the gaps with whatever ignorant bigotry they already hold. So if he just says, hey, everyone, Zoran Mamdani is Muslim, they'll take it from there. That's how it works in these circles. Meanwhile, it is kind of ironic because what does Beckwith do in Indiana? He quite literally is pushing his conservative Christian values, a faith that not all Christians share, by the way, on the people of his state in ways that are arguably unconstitutional. So, it's white Christian nationalism coming from someone who is a heartbeat away from the governor's mansion. It is shameful. It's embarrassing. It's also embarrassing because I promise you, no one in New York City gives a shit about what the lieutenant governor of Indiana has to say about anything. But like when any elected official uses this platform to smear Muslims, immigrants, people who champion equality as if they are not truly American, what are you're betraying not just your oath, you're betraying what I thought was the idea of America itself. This dude's brand of Christian nationalism relies on the exploitation of religion to divide people and control them and dehumanize people outside his bubble. Like he knows damn well that his own power requires keeping the thoughtful, decent people out of elected office. Like that's why the rest of us need to push back against that sort of rhetoric. So when Beckwith says Mamdani doesn't represent American values, he's basically saying millions of Americans who share those values don't count. We are traitors. We are not fully American. It's their citizenship. He's basically saying our citizenship, our contributions, our presence, like it's all conditional. You have to believe the way Beckwith does. You have to share his religion to be part of America. That's not patriotism. That's just right-wing poison right there. And a guy like Beckwith should not get to define what American values are for the rest of us. I will pause there. What questions we have here? Our federal government doesn't represent American values. Very true. It's why so many people, how many? 7 million showed up at the No Kings protest a couple weeks ago. Yeah. I mean, if you don't like what this government is doing, stand up against them any way you can. Mamdani's promoting the values of supporting citizens' well-being. I guess that's antithetical to Christian nationalism. It is. I mean, the Republicans are like, yeah, so what if poor people suffer from the government shutdown? Cut SNAP benefits, cut health care. Who cares? Doesn't affect us. That's Christian. That's like the government's form of Christianity for you. I'm amazed people still go to churches like that. If making society better makes people less religious, these people will argue for making society worse. I love the way you phrase that, and that is sadly true. Yeah. Thank you for that super sticker. I appreciate that. Do you think this bigotry will ever fade to black? Sadly, no. I mean, bigotry is just part of the American story as well. But bigotry doesn't have to be the only story in town. And I mean, I get romantic about it almost. I like seeing Mamdani's campaign, just like I enjoyed seeing Obama's campaign decades ago, because it gave hope to people. I mean, again, I know things look bad right now, and that's why so many of us were excited in 2020 when Biden was running, because it's like, you can end this madness. And it's why I was excited about Kamala Harris last year for the same reason, prevent Trump from getting into office, doesn't mean I had big problems with their campaigns. And it doesn't mean I like everything Obama did. But part of the romanticism is it doesn't have to be this awful. And I know when we're thinking about the midterms next year and the next election, it's very much going to be a question of I don't even care who the candidate is anymore. Just end this madness. One guy has to be the center of attention every day for the entire country. It doesn't have to be that way. And on the off chance that we're lucky enough to have a candidate who is actually good, it's an amazing thing. And that is what Mamdani is doing in New York City right now for people who aren't jaded bigots. Like, I don't care if his policy goals are going to happen. He's trying, and he seems to be a decent guy. And that you don't see enough of that in politics. So, like, the bigotry is not going to fade, but we can push them out of the damn way sometimes. That's the hope. All right. And by the way, I know we're done with this. I did start this somewhere. Someone mentioned this. I wanted to point this out. Thank you for pointing this out. Not to quibble, but John McCain said, he's not an Arab. He's a good man. Or he said he's not a Muslim. He is a good man of Obama. And he got a lot of credit for shutting down a bigot, even though what he actually said, no, he's not Muslim. He's not Arab. He's a good guy. Those two things are not antithetical. So John McCain did not actually say something that's worth praising. But he tried. I don't know. I just wanted to point that out. Thank you for sharing that, you guys. I got one last story for you. Give me a moment. Okay. Answer locked in. I was wrong. Damn it. All right. I'm going to jump to the last story here. Okay. In Colorado, like not that long ago, just a few months ago, a brand new school opened up, and it's called Riverstone Academy. Sounds like a private school, but wait. It opened up just outside of Pueblo, Colorado, and the school describes itself in a very interesting way that I want to show you. Welcome to Riverstone. Riverstone Academy is a tuition-free public elementary school, public, keyword, located on the Pueblo County Mesa, serving students in grades K through 5. Our unique program blends strong academics with classical values, hands-on trade-based learning, and what's this? And a Christian foundation to help students grow, yada, 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 I don't care. So they're a public elementary school, but it has a Christian foundation. That seems like a contradiction, doesn't it? I will tell you, there are currently 30 students who attend the school. It's not a lot, but they're brand new. And it's not like that was the only place they were saying this. That wasn't an oopsie. This is what they posted on Facebook. Visit riverstonepueblo.com to learn more. And you can see Riverstone Academy. Look right there. Christian Foundation, like it's right there in the advertisement. So this is part of who they are. They're not hiding it, but that is weird. And if you're wondering, what exactly does that mean? Maybe by Christian Foundation, they just meant, we are Christians who are starting the school, and we believe in being kind to all people. Those are our Christian values. So we teach kids to be kind. Okay, that's not necessarily a problem, but here's what they actually said for their curriculum. Check this out. They said students benefit from trusted programs such as Saxon Math, Core Knowledge Language Arts, Master Book Social Studies, and Berean Builders Science. And the ones I highlighted there are well known for being Christian companies who write textbooks catering to Christian homeschoolers. So like they have Jesus like directly in the textbooks, which is weird when we're talking about science and history. So they're not just talking about values, they're talking about injecting Christianity into the school. So if you actually care about teaching your kids science and social studies, you would not use these textbooks. You would purchase books from companies with better reputations because they don't publish material specially designed for fundamentalists. So the point is, saying the school has a Christian foundation, it's not a reference to values. Students are getting a religious education. Now, I should also say here that this particular school is managed by a company called Education Re-Envisioned BOCES, 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 which is a Board of Cooperative Educational Services. And what are these BOCES? Basically, Colorado, to my understanding, has 21 of these types of organizations that basically help public school districts meet certain needs. So let's say you have a lot of special ed students, you need to educate them differently, you have different needs. Some public school districts that don't have the resources might outsource that work to one of these types of companies, and they handle the things a normal public school district can't really do, especially if they're smaller rural public school districts. So fine, the BOCES are fine, and this Riverstone Academy is managed by one of those places. There's nothing necessarily legally wrong with that, but you have to wonder, why is this company working with a private if you're working with a private tuition-free Christian school, that would seem problematic because a public school district should not be working with a private Christian school. There's nothing legally wrong with opening up a private Christian school, but it shouldn't be working on the taxpayer's dime, right? But why is this one calling itself a public school? That seems messed up. You don't just get to open up your own public school. I know charter schools are different, but like you can't just open up your own public school. There must be some sort of arrangement with a local public school district, and that is exactly what happened in this case. And I'm going to jump to Chalkbeat Colorado, which is an educational website. It focuses on news in Colorado, but check out what they said about this school because they looked into it as well. References to the school's Christian character are absent or muted in Riverstone's application materials and contracts. An application for a school code submitted to the state in late June makes no mention of Riverstone's religious nature. It also went unmentioned in the agreement approved by the Pueblo 70 School Board in late June, and in the contract between the school and the BOCES approved by the BOCES Board in August. They just hid the fact that they were Christian until everyone signed the paperwork. And the guy who's running it, Quinn Freiberg, he said Riverstone wasn't hiding anything, but that the school's religious foundation wasn't a relevant response to questions on some of the documents. Isn't that convenient? Seems like it would be pretty damn relevant. The only time any of these people knew this was a public Christian school is when the head of the Education Re-Envisioned BOCES, his name is Ken Witt, he gave a presentation to the local public school board, and I will play for you a short clip of what he said.
We did authorize a new bricks and mortar school in Pueblo this year called Riverstone Academy. It's in keeping with our mission of continuing to make certain that the programs that parents wish existed do exist. It is Colorado's first public Christian school, and we are happy to have that school open. We're delighted that they came to us and said, hey, we'd like to operate this school. We're confident that the Espinoza ruling of the Supreme Court says we can't care when we apply public money to these private educational institutions. We can't care whether they're religiously affiliated or not, and so we don't. And we're delighted to see this school open, and we will continue to move forward with innovative, exceptional educational programs throughout Colorado.
Did you hear what he said there? He said it is Colorado's first public Christian school. He's open about it. This is clearly what Ken Witt wants. He also mentioned, we're confident that the Espinoza ruling of the Supreme Court says we can't care when we apply public money to these private educational institutions. We don't care if they're religiously affiliated or not. So he's basically saying, so everything we're doing is above board. That seems wrong. The Espinoza case that he's talking about, basically the Supreme Court said that if your state has taxpayer-funded vouchers that can be applied to private schools, you have to allow those to be used at private religious schools. And that's a horrible ruling, but okay, that's what the ruling says. This guy is using that case to say, see, so we can open a public Christian school, which has nothing to do with that case whatsoever. And at least one of the board members pointed out that that doesn't make any sense what you just said. So look at this. At the October 9th meeting this month, one member of the District 49 school board, which leans conservative, expressed alarm after Witt's briefing on Riverstone. Eroding that separation of church and state is very concerning. And for us to be a partner in that does not sit well with me. I mean, that's a very good statement from board member Mike Heil. And then look at what the board president, Lori Thompson, said in response. Just a note of clarification, separation of church and state is not contained in the United States Constitution. Like, yeah, that phrase is not in it, but as any legal scholar will tell you, the meaning is very much in there, and that's how courts have seen it forever. It's never good when the person running your school board has no clue how the Constitution works. So anyway, here's where we're at. This guy, Ken Witt, says he has opened this public Christian school. The local school district is working with his organization using taxpayer money, and the state of Colorado has no clue this is going on. They had no clue this was going on because no one knew it was a Christian school until like 2 weeks ago. So what happened after that board meeting? Well, guess what? The state of Colorado, they wrote a letter to the local public school district superintendent and to Ken Witt. And they basically asked, this is the State Department of Education. They were like, hey guys, we heard some stuff. Can you let us know what the hell is going on here? So literally, dear Mr. Hiltz and Mr. Witt, we heard Riverstone Academy has this on its website, this Christian foundation. And you guys, we saw this Facebook post you made. It says you're Christian. And look at this right here. Check out question number 2. Our second question is, do you believe the education program offered by Riverstone Academy, which appears to be sectarian and Christian, is eligible for funding under state law? And basically what the state is asking is, here's what happens. Every public school in your state has to tell the state, here's how many kids are enrolled in our school district. Because of course, public school districts get funding from the taxpayers, from the state. But the state gives public school districts money based on how many kids go there. And what the state's trying to figure out is they're like, you're going to submit numbers to us very soon so we can pay you for the kids enrolled in your district. Are you going to include the kids who go to Riverstone Academy or not? Because if you are, you're implying that kids who go to a private Christian school, even though you say it's public, you're saying they're part of the public school district. Or are you not going to include them because it's very much not part of the public school system? That's what the state was trying to figure out. And they also pointed out in this letter, at the very end of it here, based on the publicly available information viewed by the Colorado Department of Education, the department is concerned that the school district and the religious organization would not be able to complete the insurances on our form because Riverstone Academy is not meeting the same requirements and standards that apply to public schools. As such, any pupils that the public school district submits for funding from Riverstone Academy would not be eligible for funding. Can you confirm? Are you going to submit those kids for funding or are you not? That's what they want to know. And if you are, last sentence, if yes, what's your rationale on why these students would be eligible for public school funding? And that's a very good question. The state should not be giving any religious school money. So, like, is the public school district going to say, yeah, you have to give us money for them? And basically, when Ken Witt responded to that letter, and I'm only paraphrasing here, he said, if you're going to say no to funding our school on account of our religion, on account of the school's religion, that's unconstitutional. He says Riverstone is a fully qualified school that should be funded. Education Re-envisioned, the company he leads, did not and will not discriminate against Riverstone Academy due to their religious affiliation. So Ken Witt's very much on board with the state better give us money. And if you don't give us money, we're going to come after you for religious discrimination because you're not allowed to say no just because they're Christian, even though that's not what the Supreme Court has said anything about. Meanwhile, the public school district superintendent wrote back and said, they're part of our district, so we're definitely going to include them in the numbers when we give them to you. And hey, state officials, if you don't want to give them money, we don't give a shit. That's on you. You too figure it out. The state, Ken Witt, you guys talk, you figure it out, leave me the hell out of it. But for now, they are part of the public school district, so yes, I'm going to include them in the count. And if you don't like it, you figure it out. That's what the superintendent wrote back. So it's a messy situation right now. And on top of that, I'll come back to this in a second. All of this is happening. Do you remember in Oklahoma when Ryan Walters was still the state superintendent? He tried to launch a publicly funded Catholic charter school. And what happened when he did this? It would have been the first religious charter school in the country. And the state Supreme Court said it was absolutely unconstitutional. And then conservatives tried to get the U.S. Supreme Court to look at it. And Amy Coney Barrett said, hey, for reasons, I'm just going to sit this one out. And it was a 4-4 vote. And so the original decision stayed, which means it was unconstitutional. So Ryan Walters did not get to launch the first religious charter school in the country. Well, it seems like religious conservatives are now trying this approach to like sneak a Christian school into getting public funding by doing it kind of in this indirect backdoor way. It's very sneaky. So the Freedom from Religion Foundation has now also sent a letter, and they wrote it to the public school district superintendent. And they basically are saying, listen, if you say you are going to submit these numbers for state funding, you are directly funding religion. Let me point out right here. In this case, the district is unconstitutionally giving public funds to a Christian school in direct violation of the First Amendment. The district's actions signal an undeniable preference for Christianity over all other religions and non-religion. Additionally, the district is providing religious instruction to students by way of funding this Christian school. And they say at the end here, if I could find this, here, the district is directly funding Riverstone Academy's religious endeavors, teaching students to believe in Christianity and teaching subjects through an exclusively Christian lens. And listen to this. Moreover, Riverstone is not a private school seeking to participate in an otherwise neutral tuition assistance grant program. That's a reference to the Espinoza case. Instead, it is a public school seeking to receive public school education funds in order to teach students to believe in Christianity as part of an allegedly public, not private education. You can't do that. And basically, my read of this is FFRF is saying, if you go through with this, we are going to file a lawsuit against you. So maybe talk to your lawyers and figure this one out, because you are heading in a very bad place. So this is where we're at right now. I don't know what the Colorado Department of Education is going to do about this. There's no ending to this yet. We're waiting to see what all these sides decide to do. No lawsuits have been filed yet because no money's exchanged hands. But we're going to find out. I wanted to point out one other thing, which is I read a lot of coverage about what was happening with this school, Riverstone Academy, with this district. And I found very little information about who the hell is Ken Witt? Where did he come from? This guy who's trying to shepherd this whole strategy into happening, because this is what you should know about this dude. Before he took over this Education Reimagined BOCES, just earlier this year, he was the superintendent of the Woodland Park School District. And this past March, he announced he's resigning in order to pursue other opportunities. Well, it doesn't say all this in the article, but there was a ton of scandal in that district, controversies in that district. And he resigned basically to get out of everyone being mad at him. You should also know that Woodland Park is the place that houses the ministry of a Christian nationalist named Andrew Womack, Wommack. And Andrew Womack is one of those guys like Doug Wilson who basically says, I want to take over this entire town. I want my church to take over everything so that we can elect our own people to run the public school board and run the city council. And he was successful in doing that. And both of those areas suffered. When the church people took over the city council, bad things happened. A lot of articles have been written about that. When his people took over the public school board, bad things happened. Ken Witt was one of his minions. Ken Witt has appeared at events run by Andrew Womack. I didn't see any mention of that in the articles about any of this stuff. And I want to point out one other thing. About a decade ago, Ken Witt was a board member in Jefferson County in Denver. And guess what happened to him there? Jefferson County voters, this is in 2015, they ousted 3 conservative school board members who changed the way teachers are paid and briefly considered reviewing a U.S. history curriculum to promote patriotism. Basically, conservatives took over the Jefferson County School Board and said, what if we didn't give teachers the pensions they deserved? And what if we tried to whitewash U.S. history classes and teach PragerU bullshit? And people in that community were so furious that they voted out the conservative members of the school board. And guess what? Ken Witt was one of those guys. Elected in 2013, made up the majority of the second largest school district in the state. And they voted all those people out because they didn't want him. And this is the guy who is now trying to inject Christianity into the public school system in Colorado. And he wants the state taxpayers to pay for those students. And it's a constitutional crisis that is just dangerous. And can you imagine if this is allowed to stand? Basically, Ken Witt is creating a playbook for other Christian schools to be propped up by public school funding. Other people will copy him if he is successful. That's what Ryan Walters was trying to do in Oklahoma. That's what Witt is trying to do in Colorado. That's why they were hiding what they were doing until the last possible second. These people oppose public education, and instead of creating private alternatives to it, they're just trying to dismantle it from the inside. All the more reason for Colorado state officials to draw a hard line in the sand now before the next public Christian school just destroys the entire concept of public education altogether. I just wanted to bring that to your attention because I don't know what's going to happen right now, but it's very much a live ball. We will see how this ends. What questions we got here? I bet this will be referred to Trump's anti-Christianity task force for investigation. Christ, that is still a thing. You are right. Didn't even think about that. I guess we're waiting to see what Colorado chooses to do first. If they say, yeah, we're not funding this, or the public school district says, yeah, we're not going to count them, yeah, maybe this does get escalated to Pam Bondi or to Trump's fake little task force for Christian bias. So yeah, whatever the story ends, if Christians don't get what they want, they're going to try to escalate this thing. Conservative Christians going through the back door sounds ironic. Hey, that is the door they prefer to use, because what was the Garfunkel and Oates song? I forgot how the lyrics go, but yeah, it technically counts. You're still a virgin. Someone knows the lyrics. Can a Jewish or Muslim kid go to this school? I believe the answer is yes, they can. But by the way, they're going to be taught Christianity. So, if you're a Muslim family who wants to send your kid to the Christian school, no one's stopping you. But clearly, they're not making a play for those non-Christian families. They just want to create a private Christian school that gets public money. What is Saxon math? I believe it's just a well-known math curriculum. I don't know the specifics. It's not one I ever used even when I was teaching math. So I don't know it that well. I can't speak to it, but I don't believe it's like one of the Christian curricula. It's just another company that makes math books for other people. We should get tax reductions for public money going to religious causes and for the time the government is shut down. Hell, while we're at it, if they can dip into public funds to fund their religious school, I feel like we should be entitled to like a portion of all the tithe money that churches get. I think that's fair, right? All right, we are done. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much to Den for helping me stay sane during all of this. Please go to friendlyatheist.com to get the newsletter. You can get that for free. And if you feel like throwing bags of money my way, you can go to patreon.com/Hemant. I appreciate it. I should be back next week at the same time. And I will see you then. Have a good, safe Halloween if you're enjoying that, and have a good weekend.